pick it up here. Gender-based violence in South Africa has become so rife that women are barely safe, whether in private or public. Rape, femicide and kidnapping of women and children has become an almost daily conversation. In his State of the Nation address last night, President Cyril Ramaphosa promised to amend laws to better protect women, and 1.6 billion rand has also been allocated for an emergency action plan on gender-based violence. But is this enough? Well, to discuss this, we're joined by Dr. Tlaleng Mofokeng, and she is from the Commission for Gender Equality. She joins us from our studios. Good morning, Dr. Mofokeng. And so your reaction about what the President committed last night, including that amount of 1.6 billion rand?
Yeah, look, I think the President, you can see that there was some effort to try and speak broadly about different issues that affect South Africa. And he did speak a lot about different industries and new industries that are going to be developed. And of course, I was listening keenly, as was the Commission, around issues of gender-based violence and any new plans or any new ideas there. And I must say that, there was a lack of detail, I think, in terms of what has happened since the last time the President announced his emergency action plan. He made reference to the same amount of money that he did announce last year already. And I think what was missing yesterday was, in fact, a feedback in terms of, since he has told the ministers and tasked the different departments with this response, what has happened. And I think some of the issues we know have been the shortage of supply for DNA kits for those people who have opened a case of rape or sexual assault. We know that before, even in civil society, in terms of their shutdowns, they have been complaining specifically around the long delays of court and processing of these cases. So some feedback would have been really, really good to understand and have an appreciation of how the different departments have reacted to the previous President's plan.
There was the declaration, though, of, and this was last month, of the specialized courts that are going to deal exclusively with cases of gender-based violence. In your view, will this not go far enough? In fact, we even saw him last year opening one of these courts here in Johannesburg. How are these focused services likely to improve what has been a dismal system?
The focus services are really, really of importance, and I think, the reason why I'm asking for more detail is, like you are saying, these have been launched already over a month ago. So it would have been great to get an understanding of how, I suppose, the people who also assist the President come up with these ideas. Do they see the linkages, for example, between all of these problems that are gender-based and that are, unfortunately, still mapping themselves onto the bodies of women and young girls in this country? I'll give you a very clear example. Yesterday, the President spoke about an improvement in the healthcare system, but the lived experience of patients and ordinary South Africans will tell you that they don't have that experience of the improved health system. But do we see, for example, that there's a linkages between the persistent contraceptive stockouts with unsupportable pregnancy and the lack of continued, and safe abortion access, and again, the issue now of abandoned children. So I don't get a sense that in terms of the social fabric, the social structure, the structural drivers of a lot of the problems that he so well articulates, that there's an understanding of what are these fault lines and where do they lie. But if you're talking about gender-based violence, the court system are critical for justice. Yeah. But there is still a lot around prevention, around the delays, right, and the lack of transportation for a lot of victims. Will tell you that, look, I couldn't even open a case for a month or 2 months because I simply couldn't get to a police station. So there is a lot more that needs to happen, that needs to be in place before a case can get to court. And those are the kinds of details we require.
Dr. Mofokeng, there has been, of course, this claim that the proclamations around the establishment of the sexual offences courts is a direct result of the Gender-Based Violence Summit that was held in November last year. In your view, has there been any other development since that summit? Has there been any other new thing that has come out as a result, as a direct result of that summit?
I think one of the roles that the Commission for Gender Equality is mandated to is oversight and monitoring. And one of those functions has been monitoring the interministerial, or at least the interim steering committee on the response to gender-based violence. And a lot of the ideas are not necessarily brand new. It's just that we are looking at implementation. What has been the gaps that have hindered us to implement these old and sometimes very valid responses, and how do we then plan moving forward to make sure that those plans are literally accessible, that there are material gains that women and children who are abused can have benefit and access from. I think the issue of budget remains a big concern because the president said 1.6 billion in this fiscal year. This fiscal year ends in a few weeks. What is the plan after this fiscal year? And I think those are the fundamental issues that we need to talk about, because if you look the world over, research has been saying the same thing over and over again. What we need is not necessarily brand new ideas. What we need is to implement the plans that are already existing and that research in fact supports for many years and many decades. And perhaps that's where the frustration lies, is that the solutions to our problems are not yet to be discovered. They're already existing.
Yeah, thank you very much for your insights there. That's Dr. Taleng Mofokeng. The issue is that of implementation.